Namaste everyone. I'm delighted to welcome you all here today for our Vichar Manthan Manchester event, where we will be exploring the topic of Hindu festivals. My name is Abhilasha and I will be your host for today. Vichar Manthan, or VM for short, is an independent voluntary organization which engages in open dialogue with members of society and institutions. VM explores issues facing modern British society through a Hindu civilizational lens. Vichar Manthan is a phrase in Sanskrit which means the churning of ideas or thoughts. VM is built around the idea that by earnestly exploring the toughest challenges facing British society through varying viewpoints, we can, each of us, churn out some deeper insight. VM currently has 5 chapters across the country, and there are many volunteers who give their time, skills, and money in order to make these events happen. Without further ado, let me introduce you to today's chair, Hariji. Hari is a solicitor by profession, planning and managing all aspects of his clients' finances. Hari is part of the community team for the Hindu Lawyers Association. He's also a trustee for the Carers charity, which helps meet the individual needs for carers. Thank you and enjoy today's VM.
It seems rather appropriate that we're here today discussing the topics of Hindu festivals, given that next weekend marks the start of a busy few months on the Hindu festival calendar. Hindu Dharma almost certainly has a longer list of festivals than any other religious tradition. Hindu festivals, they engage the spiritual aspirant with the Paramatma. The festive colors, sounds, devotions, discourses, and of course the feasting usher in a breath of fresh air and break the monotony of life. They bring peace and joy to the masses, and above all, they promote social interaction and harmony. But have we now, as a society, begun to lose the meaning of why these festivals are being held? Are we truly honoring our culture and tradition through Dharma? Or have we now abandoned the path of higher thought and descended onto a path of materialism and overconsumption? Is it the modern marketing machines which have unscrupulously manipulated us through their relentless messaging, encouraging us to spend and indulge, fooled us into reaching deep into our pockets instead of our hearts? Has the commercialization of our festivals eroded their real significance? Or is the problem with society? Has the spirit of community and shared values now been replaced by convenience and a desire to project a certain social image of ourselves? Have our festivals now simply become an opportunity to take selfies, upload photos, and make posts and tweets on social media? Or do we have to take a pragmatic approach? Ultimately, any festival will incur costs. So shouldn't community organizations be allowed to charge for food and tickets? They too have bills and overheads to meet. These are some of the topics and issues which we will be looking to explore here today. Hopefully all of you will be able to provide your own perspectives on how you think Hindu festivals have changed based on cultural identity and dharmic values. I really hope today we walk away with a lot of ideas critically exploring some of the challenges faced by the Hindu community. Before I introduce our speakers, for those that do not know the VM format, each speaker will speak for 15 minutes. Thereafter, there will be a short Q&A between myself and the speakers before handing over to you, the audience. May I kindly ask the audience to keep the questions to a maximum of a minute, and please wait before you're selected and then stand and ask your questions. Without further ado, please let me introduce our fantastic panel of speakers. To my right, we have Professor Navalkant Brinja, Professor Prinja comes from a traditional Hindu Brahmin family, originally from Punjab, India. He was born in Kenya and has studied in Kenya, India, and the UK. He's an honorary professor at 4 British universities, and along with his professional job as a technical director in a leading nuclear consultancy company, he has continued with his traditional family role of officiating at Hindu ceremonies and performing religious rites. As a practicing Hindu, he is regularly consulted by educational institutions, media, solicitors, and other bodies on matters related to Hinduism. His book explaining Hindu Dharma is used in schools and colleges to teach about Hinduism. He emphasizes that he is not a preacher, but a teacher who likes to explain how relevant is the Hindu philosophy in modern times. To my left, we have Aditya Gurtu. Aditya is a former president of the University of Bristol Hindu Society and a University of Cambridge engineering graduate who gave up his job to spend 3 years in an Indian ashram in the jungles of South India and on the river Ganges, studying Vedanta and Sanskrit under the great scholar and monk Swami Dayananda Saraswati. He has also spent many years backpacking independently across India. Aditya now works as a project manager in London and teaches regular classes in Sanskrit, Vedic chanting, and Hindu philosophy to adults and children. Privately, he continues to learn and practice yogic meditation techniques based upon compassion and insight. To my far left, we have Vipasha Surange. Vipasha is originally from Manchester and studied her BA in International Relations at King's College London and is now beginning her Masters in Emerging Economics and International Development, also at King's College. Vipasha is part of the National Committee of the National Hindu Students Forum, the largest Hindu university organization outside of India. Last year, she held a position on the National Committee as a National Sanskar Coordinator. This year, she is on the London Zone team and overlooks the 13 affiliated Hindu societies within universities in London. Professor Prinja.
Brothers and sisters, Aditya, Vipasha, I'm pleased to be part of this debate today. I would have actually preferred to hear the youngsters before I spoke, but I'll have a go. In my view, when you look at it as Dharma or Dhamaka, my view is that it is all Dhamaka. More drama than Dharma. Lots of razzmatazz, lot of fun, lot of commercialization, but hardly any Dharma in it. There may be some element of religion, but not Dharma. And I will quote one example. Very recently we had Ganesh Chaturthi, Ganesh Visarjan. Yeah? Hands up, how many of you are from Maharashtra here? Okay, few of them. Very good. And here in Manchester, there was a lot of enthusiasm in among the devotees who go to the local temple. They are calling me to say, oh, you know, this year we have sponsored Ganeshji. Please sponsor Ganeshji. Please come and, take part, do the darshan, and then we are going to sit in a coach and go all the way to Liverpool. And apparently there was even a bigger event in Liverpool. And then that's where we are going to do the Visarjan. So I asked all these enthusiastic devotees, do you know why this Visarjan is done? Now, like Aditya, I took interest in our philosophy. I studied Sanskrit and I studied every word of the 11 main Upanishads. Believe me, take my word, and he will confirm, there is no mention of Ganesh Visarjan in any of those books. Where has it come from? If you look at the history, and by all means Google it if you want to, it was during, not very long time ago, during British Raj, during the freedom movement, that Lokmanya Tilak ji in Maharashtra thought of a very clever plan that whilst the political gatherings were not being allowed, he thought, aha, I can make use of Ganesh Chaturthi. I can actually ask people to come together and we can have a public rally in which all the Indians, all the Hindu Samaj can unite. A very clever idea at that time. To achieve other objectives, people of all caste, when this Visarjan procession is going, nobody checks. Everybody is invited, Ganapati, Bappa, Moria, and all this. And then rest is history because Bombay or Mumbai is in Maharashtra. Bollywood is there. It entered into the movies. And before you know, everybody else in India started to follow that tradition. It was popularized more by Bollywood than by any scripture. The purpose behind such a worship is very simple. It used to be done in Maharashtra privately in homes. Chhatrapati Shivaji used to do that, to emphasize and remind everyone that this physical body is made from the 5 physical elements: earth, air, fire, water, and space, and that is where it will dissolve. The Ganapati was actually made out of biodegradable, things, and it was made sure that when it is made, it also gets dissolved. I wanted to actually show you a clip, and we couldn't. Just 1 minute clip of what has actually happened, the net result of it, in a gutter full of all other rubbish. You have dismembered Ganeshji lying scattered. It's shameful to watch. Ask yourself, if you are ever cleaning your house or you see a photograph of your own child, yourself, your parents, your loved one, your lover, whoever else, you will pick it up and, preserve it. And here you are, someone who is divine, who is meant to be giving us the message of Dharma, the philosophy of samsara, that this physical world will just keep on changing. Yeah, we worship it and then discard it in among the rubbish lying in the gutter. Shameful. I, was shocked by that. Now, I asked these ladies after they understood, said, oh, is that what it is? We thought it was religious. I said, then why are you doing it? Oh, priests have actually told us that Ganeshji is a remover of all obstacles. So we should go and do all this because all our problems will disappear. So it was all about my relationships, my business, my exam results, the normal everyday things. It was being done more out of fear, more out of ignorance, not only of these people, but ignorance of the priests who were spreading this kind of a message. So I would propose that this is a lack of knowledge. It is very much a responsibility of our priests who are using it or commercializing it, for their own very benefit. Now, as our chair mentioned, there is soon going to be the Garba, the Dandiyas, and all that. 9 nights of celebration during the Navratri. And one very simple thing that every child knows is, we go there at night to dance. Why do they dance? Why 9 nights? What actually is the message behind it? Very simple. It's the worship of the Shakti, the power behind the creation. You need the knowledge to create anything. Remember, the dancing with the sticks is very much like a mock battle. Those dandiyas are your swords. You are actually fighting a battle. Battle Between whom? Good and the bad. The battle is knowledge winning over ignorance. Saraswati, first 3 nights. And then the battle, remember, Tamsoma Jyotirgamya. Yeah, light over darkness, Lakshmi. And then finally, Mrityu Maha Amritamagamya. The battle of immortality to win over death, Durga and Kali. Yeah, who actually knows this message? The only thing they know is we are going to dance. You check with the youngsters, and the reports are already coming from India as well. Yeah, the atmosphere there is less of removing ignorance, less of removing the darkness. It is more enjoyment, more dhamaka. You know, they are girls who go there dressed up like, you know, they're going to a party. And some people even objected, look at them, they are almost semi-naked. So I'm not one of those people who will start to criticize youth. Youth know how to dress, how to behave, and I have no issues with it whatsoever. Clothes or even no clothes, I don't care. Yeah? If you look in our Hindu tradition, if you look at the Naga sadhus, if you even look at the Kali Mata herself, you will know where I'm coming from. It is not what you do, it is what you know. It is less of, razzmatazz and enjoyment. You have to focus on the spiritual aspect of it. And that level, physical world, the phenomenal world just does not matter. So I'm not into those kind of debates, but my point is this. If you turn a garba into disco, then all the problems of disco will come to garba as well. There will be drugs, there will be spiking of drinks, and there will be rapes. And that is really what is starting to happen. So if you commercialize, if you turn it into that, then you will face the results. So finally, tell me please when my time is over, otherwise I'll keep on, because I feel very passionate about this subject. So what's the solution? If you look at it from the Western point of view, and Sachinji is here, he's a keen philosopher. And in the West, we actually have 2 main schools of philosophy. Rationalism, on one hand, which is to do with thought process being clear, the theory, and a French idea, and empiricism, which is practicalities, doing. One side knowing, one side doing. Yeah? The Hindu philosophy is a little bit above that. It says do both. If you read Ishavasya Upanishad, if you read any other Upanishad, they actually advise you, sambhuti, asambhuti, the bit which is manifested, the physical, the practical, and the bits which are unmanifested. Both go together. Both are needed. Both. So I will end by saying that follow what our Hindu philosophy says. Yeah? By all means, do the Dhamaka, but do not forget Dharma. Thank you.
Thank you, Professor Pinja. Aditya?
I broadly agree with those comments. I think the key thing here is we seem to have forgotten the spiritual essence of what the festivals are about, which is what's just been said, which I completely agree with. And I'm sure probably most people would agree with that as well. I suppose the interesting thing here is then what role does the Dhamaka play in a festival? And also that is, I think, an intrinsic part of festivals. They're meant to be fun. They should be fun, yeah? So you feel good in a festival, but at the same time, not at the cost of forgetting the true essence of the festival. And And so I think, I just scribbled a few thoughts on the train here. So when it comes to festivals, so you've got the spiritual aspect, which is obviously the essence. And the essence of spirituality in our Hindu tradition is summarized by texts such as the Upanishads, as we just heard in the Vedas. It's the highest philosophy. Really, for me, all forms of festivals, Hindu activities, pujas, they all have their culmination in Upanishad, really speaking. And Upanishad is all about, it's discussing about the nature of reality, the nature of your heart. One should have compassion in the heart, and that should radiate out to everyone. And because everyone is one. So this is the sort of philosophy behind, which sits behind everything for me. And so with festivals, I think that's the sort of ultimate target, is to get people to that state. But obviously, you don't go to a festival for that. You go to have fun. So I think there are certain levels here. So I was thinking about it, and I thought it's better that people at least go to a festival to have fun than not at all. That's kind of level one. So imagine someone, like I've got little nephews. So we just went to Janmashtami. I live in London, so in Watford. We went to Janmashtami festival, and they love it. They just go for all the games and having fun, and they're only 4 years old, and there's some interesting, spiritual stories and katha about Krishna, and it's brilliant, and it's very well marketed, very well organized. They've clearly got very good sort of commercial acumen to promote and do the event, and I'm actually I admire it a lot. In that sense, I admire it. As long as we were saying, the spiritual element isn't lost in that. So you've got that spiritual essence, which is the core. You've also got the element of having fun. So it shouldn't be too serious, right? You should go and you should have fun. Also with festivals, I feel there's a certain, there's a social aspect. It's good just for social cohesion. Just for people to come together, to meet each other. So I lived in India in an ashram for 4 years in South India, and it was interesting because every time there was a big festival, everyone would come to the temple, and it would be a huge thing. And like where we were, it was quite a remote area, so you don't have like clubs and pubs there. I mean, it was like a village, basically. So that is their equivalent of like people here go to the pub. Go to the pub to meet my friends. So there, you'll go to the temple, and it's got a social aspect. You meet all the different families, it brings people together, and, whether or not they understand the spiritual significance of the festival to which they've gone to, I don't know, you'd have to ask them, I suppose. But definitely there's a social element, which I think in itself has a certain value. The spiritual element, which is obviously the backdrop of it, the fun element. Also, obviously, with festivals, there are a lot of what we call vratams, Vratams, for example, they're like commitments, like I'm going to fast, for example. You heard of that? People fast for certain festivals, or they'll keep what we call maunam, they'll keep silent. So there's a certain, what we call tapas in Sanskrit. Tapas means a kind of spiritual discipline. It's an opportunity to practice flex your spiritual muscle in a way. So I feel festivals are also a good opportunity, a good reason for us to practice some more deep spiritual sadhana or tapas or practices, which we wouldn't normally. So all of these factors are in the mix in this discussion, and I'm sure we're going to hear a lot more about this during the discussion as well. And I suppose the interesting question is how do we strike a balance? And what is primary and what is secondary, right? What is with a festival, what is the primary reason? And then what are the secondary things around it? So primarily it's spiritual, right? So going to a festival without really understanding what it's about, what's the story, what's the deeper significance, well then to me I just think, what's the point, really? What is the point? But again, the counter-argument is at least people are going, and it allows people who maybe wouldn't be interested in that side of things, at least it allows people a forum and an environment in which they can explore that question. Possibly. Point of debate. I'd be interested to hear what people think on that. So looking at it from a very pragmatic point of view, I'd say better go. If you're not going to do anything, at least go and have fun. Okay, if you're going to festivals and having fun, one step up would be to at least make a little bit of an effort to try and understand what the festival is about. If you're already doing that, the next level up would be, okay, now you understand what it's about, you have fun, so let's at least get involved in the seva, maybe help organize that festival, do some charity, do some of the vratams, do some maunam, some silence, some fasting. So that's another stage, right? Now you're really engaged in spiritual practice. So to me, that's one step up. And then the ultimate step, which is the final goal for me, the lakshya, the target, we'll say, is that you really delve into the true meaning of the essence, the spiritual essence, which essentially is, you know, if we're in a festival and we're celebrating Lord Ram and Sita, say, right? So what is the essence of Lord Ram and Sita? Ram embodies compassion. He embodies patience. He embodies all these dharmic virtues, which his life is like a teaching to us to try and aspire towards and be like that and really live like that in our own lives. So it's not just about having fun. Of course, that's fine. But let us try and better ourselves through understanding that deeper meaning and really bringing that spiritual element in our hearts and really trying to be like Ram, trying to be like Sita, trying to follow the teachings of Krishna. So we celebrate Janmashtami, we celebrate Krishna, and obviously Lord Krishna's famous teaching is the Bhagavad Gita. So naturally, then, if you want to know more about what Krishna is about and Janmashtami is about, we should at least know a little bit about Bhagavad Gita. But if you really look honestly, how many people have actually studied the Bhagavad Gita? How many people have made an effort to sit down and study and understand and learn from a teacher? Again, not judging, but my general sense is not so many. I think it's the minority. And that's fine. There's nothing wrong in that. It's not a bad thing. So all I would say is let's at least aspire to learn more. There are a few other points I want to make. So in this process of, let's take an example. So say you want to learn more, right? Say now as a result of this discussion after today, you get inspired and you think, oh, let me research a bit more about Diwali or whatever festival it is. There's a secondary issue we have here in that in order for you to learn more, how are you going to learn more? From whom are you going to learn? The authenticity of the sources. You have so many spiritual groups, so many philosophies, even within Hinduism. It can be very intimidating, quite confusing. I mean, even for me, it was quite confusing. I spent years and years when I was younger reading various books about Hindu philosophy. And there's a lot there. There's a lot to make sense of. So ultimately, we say in our tradition that without a spiritual teacher, without a guru, it's very difficult to make sense of all this. So we have another issue now in that I think it's an issue of modern times where we don't have many gurus around, actually. Say you want to learn more, who are you going to go to? Who are you going to go to? So do we have gurus in our society? Do we have spiritual teachers? Even if people claim to be teachers, really, how do you know that they're authentic or not? So as we heard, I spent a year backpacking around India, looked like literally on a kind of guru hunt in a way, just meeting lots of teachers, meeting lots of spiritual teachers. It's very interesting for me. And what was quite disheartening, I found, I was 21 or something, so I was quite sort of innocent in a way. But what was quite disheartening is how insincere I found many of the so-called spiritual teachers that I met were. Not all of them, of course, but I would say of the few people I met, I'd say it's definitely the minority, I'd say, who are genuine. Not the majority, it's the minority. And often that minority I found, because they're not really interested in name or fame or getting lots of disciples, because by their very nature, by the fact that they're sincere, they're humble. One of the great qualities we get taught in the Gita is amanitvam. He says in chapter 13 in the Gita, amanitvam adambittam ahimsa kshanti rajavam. So amanitvam means a certain humility. So naturally, if a teacher is genuine, they're going to be humble. But then we have a bit of an issue in that they're not going to be like on the internet advertising saying, come to me and come to my ashram, because they're not really bothered as well. So it's a kind of catch-22 in a way, which is sad, but also it's very brilliant as well. There's a certain beauty in that. You have to make the effort to find these people, that's why. And that itself is quite exciting in a way. Yeah. And so I think this is another issue I wanted to maybe discuss and hear people's thoughts on, is that we lack teachers in our society. We lack genuine teachers. So obviously, in absence of a teacher, you want to know about what a festival is about. What are you going to do? You're going to go to the all-knowing one, which is Google. Because Google knows everything. But the problem with Google is that you don't know if it's authentic or not, but naturally it's a starting point. So it's better than nothing, I think. It's a starting point. At least it sparks the debate. It sparks the discussion. So I want to end on that, on taking a kind of pragmatic stance on it, not too hardline, not that commercialism is totally wrong and totally evil. I don't think so. I think it has its benefits as well. And not that, having fun is something bad as well. That's a good, important part of the festival, as long as that is balanced with the spiritual core message behind that festival.
I'm going to give the student perspective of Diwali or Dhamaka. So everything that I say is from experiences that I've had in the past 3.5 years at university, being part of the National Hindu Students Forum, a platform which students use to go to massive Navratri events and to have Diwali balls, things like that. So that's the experience I'm going to talk about with everyone here. So I think the first thing is to define the terms of the issue at hand. So commercialization. So the definition that I've ascribed it right now in the context of our discussion is when the emphasis on money or PR or materialism becomes greater than the emphasis on promoting the values or the essence of the Utsav itself. So with that in mind, we'll move forward with are Utsavs commercialized or not? So I'll split my monologue into about like 4 bits. So are they commercialized? Yes or no? If so, how? So real life examples of things that some of us in this audience as well have witnessed on campus, university campuses. Why are they commercialized? And then what can we do about it? What should we do about it? So yes, Utsavs are definitely being commercialized, increasingly so. So if I take you back on a journey of the Hindu student scene over the past 30 years or so, we start off about 30 years ago when the National Hindu Students Forum was just being formed. And the reason why it was being formed was because there was not a safe environment for Hindu students, British Hindu students, to practice their dharma, be that lighting a diya, doing an arti, holding a Diwali puja, even holding a talk like this. There was no space on university campuses where Hindu students felt that they could do that openly, freely, safely, and proudly. So the National Hindu Students Forum was started, and then over the past 30 years, right now we stand at just under 50 affiliated Hindu societies across the country. Just under 5,000 students are part of the National Hindu Students Forum. So as you can tell, it's grown exponentially. So over these past 30 years, the priorities have shifted. Because before, 30 years ago, when people would be laughed at for putting colour on their faces for Hori, now it's like, oh, I want to be part of that festival as well. So priorities have shifted, society has shifted as well. So that means that, yes, our Utsavs have become more commercialized by, and not just by outsiders, by us as British Hindus as well. So if I give you examples of how this has happened, I'll pick 2 main examples. So firstly, Holi, as you know, is one of the most exciting utsavs out there. You know, you throw color. There's obviously a lot of meaning behind it as well. But it's a time for everyone to get together, have fun. You know, it's springtime. It's one of our most vibrant, fun, enjoyable utsavs out there. So it's no surprise that other organizations, other institutions have seen that and want to, I guess, usurp that from us. So in university, the situation is that, I'll give you one example of a university which I won't name, but a university within the UK. So their Hindu society used to put on, still does, a massive Holi celebration. So around March time, hundreds of students would come together. You know, the committee would plan all of it, so there'd be powder, there'd be water, there'd be food. It would just be a massive celebration on campus. And, you know, there'd be speeches as well by the president to tell everyone the significance of Holi, why it's such an important festival to Hindus, etc. But essentially it was a massive gathering, and the student union supported it wholeheartedly. So they gave funds to this university, they gave resources, they gave their backing, their support, everything to this university to carry out this Holi celebration. Now last year, the student union of this university refused to give any sort of support, funding, resources to the university Hindu society in question. And actually, they put on their own colour run around the same time. So I don't know if some of us will be aware of what a colour run is. It's essentially like Holi. You throw colour, and it's kind of like a mini 5K marathon, whatever. But this university student union kind of didn't let our Hindu society put on their own event, as in they didn't give them the funding, the resources, but they channeled that all into their own colour run, which had alcohol, and it was like a DJ, like a party, essentially. That's what it was. So in that case, there's very overt commercialization of our utsav. The university student union recognized the fact that this is very profitable. Hundreds of people come to this gathering every year. So they stole it, and they made money out of it, and they washed away the values behind it. So the Hindu society event still occurred, but obviously if it's within like a 2-week period, not many people came to the Hindu society event. Everyone flocked to the colour run. So that's one example. Another one is the concept of a Diwali boat party. So in London, it's a very popular thing where the India society, so there's an India society and a Hindu society usually, depending on their demographics. The India society hosts a Diwali boat party. I've been to one. My university, I've just given away which who the organization that did this, but my university hosts one. I went in first year, great fun. But essentially it's a night where everyone gets dressed up in lovely Indian attire, saris, kurtas, bindis, everything. And everyone piles onto a boat that goes up and down the Thames for 2-3 hours. There's a bar there, there's alcohol being served, etc. But it's overtly branded as a Diwali boat party. So therein lies the problem, right? Call it the India Society boat party, call it the Freshers boat party. Don't call it a Diwali boat party, where the only commonality between that event and Diwali is that it might fall in within a 2-week period of Diwali. Nothing else, nothing remotely religious or spiritual or ritualistic or dharmic about that event at all. In fact, probably the opposite is true. But the word Diwali, the name Diwali, is used as a promo material, essentially, to get people to come, because it's cool. So those are two examples of things that are happening on university campuses right now. These things have happened, I'd say, increasingly over the last decade. So now why? Why is this happening? To be very blunt, our utsavs are so much fun. They're vibrant, they're colourful. They bring everyone together. Navratri, the dancing, the garba, the danya, so much fun. And if we love it, imagine an outsider looking in. They must think it's even more appealing, even more exciting, and they do. So on a very simple level, that's why they're being commercialized, because people are genuinely interested and people genuinely know that they can exploit this fun and attractiveness for their own commercial gain. Outsiders as well as ourselves. So the incentives of money, of materialism, of PR, promo for your society become greater than actually preserving the sanctity of this utsav. And on some level, who can blame them? Because they are so much fun, right? Like, we've all been to these massive utsavs before. Within short, Navratri happens every year in Manchester. Amazing, 9 nights of pure fun and of beauty as well when you actually look at the meanings behind the utsavs. But then, which comes to my final part of what do we do, then the onus falls on us to, yes, very, very proudly promote these utsavs. Yes, make sure that they are inclusive and people of all backgrounds feel welcome to participate in them, but also the onus is on us to deliver the right message of why we celebrate these utsavs. What sort of sanskars, what sort of values are we learning from them? What sorts of values are our students at university getting from them? You hear stories of the story behind Holi, the story behind Diwali, but also it's a chance for Hindu students to get together and be proud of being Hindu. Yeah, when there's 900, 1,000 students all in one hall, going around the central murti, doing garba, doing dandiya, there's such a sense of unity and pride and joy in being Hindu. So I think we should promote that, we should encourage that. But I guess the message of like what I'm trying to say in my opening bit is that we need to allow there to be platforms for students, opportunities for students at whatever age. So right from like at home up until university, we need to make sure that there are appropriate platforms for students to explore their identity, to engage in their dharma, and then only after they explore and think and have debates and discussions and hear from eminent speakers about why we do what we do, only then will they feel a greater connection with the utsav, and then they'll feel a responsibility to protect it themselves. So the take-home message, I think, is to provide a platform for kids, not just kids, for everyone in society, to learn more about our dharma. And then once we do that, then because we have the ability to protect it, to protect these utsavs, but we need to feel that responsibility to protect it. The only moment we feel a responsibility to protect it, to protect our dharma, to protect these utsavs, is when we know the true essence of them. Because once we know the true essence, we can actually see that, wow, this is teaching me so much. This is a message that was told in a story 1,000 years ago, but it's still just as applicable today. So once we can understand that, can appreciate that, can take that up as our own responsibility, and I don't think it's just students, I don't think it's just parents, I think it's everyone. Everyone sat in this audience, everyone right from the youngest of ages to the oldest of ages. It's everyone's responsibility to ensure that that education, that promotion of knowledge spreads in order to preserve the sanctity and the beauty and the essence of our utsavs and hence our dharma. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you to our panel of speakers. Professor Prinjay, if I can start with you. We live in a capitalistic world. Everything has a price, there is a cost, so that makes it commercial. So are we not then going to be consumers? What can we do about this?
This is the point I made, that in this physical, phenomenal world, you cannot live without the physics of it. Yeah, we all need to eat. We all need to have clothes. We need, So our philosophy basically says, yes, by all means. If we are talking about commercialization, cost of products, economy, yes, we do Lakshmi Puja. We recognize that these things are needed. We are not saying that they are not, but they should not be the prime objective. That's the point. Both are needed. Yeah, you need, as I mentioned earlier on, sambhuti, asambhuti. You need the manifest as well as the unmanifest. The physical, the economy, the wealth, they are just the means to achieve the higher end.
Aditya.
Yeah, it's interesting you mentioned about Lakshmi. That just sparked an idea. So the beauty of our Hindu tradition is that everything is auspicious for us. Everything is divine. You know, music, art, money. Even Lakshmi is the embodiment of money, right? So you can transform that same desire for money and commercial acumen into something sacred. So it's not necessarily that in my view, it's not necessarily that it needs to be renounced or given up. It just needs to be slightly redirected. Because, you know, even commercial acumen, even marketing a festival well and organizing it well and raising funds in order to run it well is a real skill and a really important thing, I think. So as long as the motive behind why it is that we are monetizing it, as long as the motive behind that is good. Good in the sense, when we say good, or let's use the word dharmic, let's use the Sanskrit word dharmic, it should be selfless, not selfish. So, you know, you can earn well, and you can use that wealth for selfish reasons or selfless reasons. And that's up to you, really. I mean, no one can dictate you shall do this. It's really up to your heart, what you feel. So that is the essence of spirituality, is it not? That you become more selfless, you become more compassionate. So I say if that is the way of the world, obviously everything is becoming very commercialized generally. I say that's fine. Let's work with that energy and just point it in the right direction. Use it for selfless reasons. Use it to feed the poor, to do charity, to organize events, organize educational events, organize talks like this, right? So it's not necessarily that I don't see commercialism as a really evil, bad thing, and you know we should just do away with it completely. I don't think so at all. And I think I would say in our philosophy it doesn't say that either. That's why we have Lakshmi Puja, right? We worship money as a goddess. But of course, naturally, that's not an excuse just to be selfish and greedy. So aparigraha is a value. So aparigraha means non-grasping, non-hoarding. You know, hoarding? You know, like sometimes you just keep, when you go to people's houses, they just keep lots and lots of little things. It's like you hoard things. Sometimes I do that, and then I just chuck stuff out of my room. But it's good. It's a value in Hindu spirituality, and in all spirituality, not only Hindu spirituality, that we should live simply, you know? Don't just acquire material things just for the sake of it. Of course, have what you need to be happy, live well. We're not saying you have to give up everything and live in a cave, not at all. You live well, you live comfortably, but everything in balance. So even in the Gita, Krishna talks about this principle of balance, right? He says, success is not there for the one who sleeps too much or sleeps too less, for the one who eats too much or eats too less. The idea is that we have to strike a balance, you know? Neither too much money obsession, nor should you be too less either, because you need money to function, right? And so it maybe sounds very obvious, but in my experience, it's actually quite hard to strike a balance in the middle. It's not an easy thing. In the Gita, they use the word, there's a kaushalyam. Kaushalyam means there's a skillfulness in this. It's not easy. You need to be quite skillful to balance everything in life. And I think the same applies here with the commercial aspect of festivals. It's a balance. You need the money aspect, but at the same time, balance it with the spiritual core.
Just to take up on that, you say it requires selflessness. So does the issue lie with the individual organizers?
Yeah, absolutely. I definitely think that's a factor in it. So especially the organizers of such events and festivals, the energy, or to put it in slightly hippie terms, the vibe with which you organize the festival, it sets the energy for the whole festival, right? So if the organizers are in it for the money, like you gave that example, then it's just become commercialized. It's just about an event just to have fun, and the spiritual element is lost. And that's a decision of the organizers, really. Maybe out of ignorance, innocently. I'm not saying it's like they're really bad. People just aren't aware. But definitely the attitude with which you undertake an action totally affects the action. And this is a core principle in Hindu philosophy. We talk about the ichcha. You know, ichcha, it's like from your heart. The desire with which you do something is primary. The intention is primary. And then your actions will follow naturally. So if your intention is selfless and compassionate, and you're really organizing it to, help others and really express your devotion to that deity, then I think everything falls into place naturally, I think.
Okay. But do you not think that greed and vice will always come in? Individual egos, that's always going to be there. No? Vipisha, do you want
to? Yeah, definitely. That's human nature, right? Like greed, ego, selfishness. But, the reason why we have been engaging in these utsavs for millennia are so they can teach us the opposite virtues. So how to be selfless, how to detach. And I think essentially what you said, it's the onus falls on the organizers to know why you're doing what you're doing. So if you're clear in your mindset of I'm organizing a Navratri event because I want to unite the Hindu Samaj, the Hindu student Samaj within London, let's say, and through that event, I want there to be, even if people take away the smallest of things, we're not expecting people to be kind of yogis by the end of it, but even if they take away the smallest element of, I didn't know this about why this festival is celebrated, then you've achieved your goal. And that's what we set out to do. So, and when you have those, it's essentially exactly like Adityaji said, once you have those pure intentions, then the greed and the ego and the selfishness kind of move aside because you're not doing it for those reasons.
Thank you. Okay, how can we reinforce the spiritual nature of our festivals? Are there any practical solutions to readdress the balance?
I'll start by saying that we really need to have a go at the way our priests are trained and employed. Behind very many of these festivities, an element of religion is added, which is represented by our priests. And I have come across very many of them who haven't got a clue. Yeah, they are what I will call Dharma. They just know how to perform a ritual. But if you go and say, oh yes, but why? What actually is behind it? What's the philosophical aspect? And you raise the question of spirituality. So I just want to share with you, what do we mean by being spiritual? Our philosophy says, yes, we have a body made out of, as I said earlier, on the 5 physical elements and all the genomes and, genetic code and the various chemicals. That is very well known, defined. Every cell is now identified, done. Then we have other aspect of life we call the emotional life, our desires and so on. That also is there. You have the 5 senses with you, and our philosophy says enjoy them, make use of them. But for what? Ultimately, to reach the 3rd level, the spiritual level, which says your body is actually being made to work by this power in you. Your mind it's a Kena Upanishad, which says, by whom my mind is made to work, by whom my eyes are made to see. Ultimately, there is a driver inside you. Once that driver has gone, you're just a dead body. Yeah? What is that driver? What is that real you? That energy in you which is constant. Yeah? This is what is needed, and that is why festivals have been designed. That is what the priests should really be pointing out at you. By the way, festivals in Sanskrit are called utsava. Utsa, the root utsa, actually means heart. It livens up. Any event that livens up your life, that makes you live again, that makes you feel that energy inside you, is a real utsav.
Thank you. And the same question to you, Aditya.
Yeah, along the same lines, I suppose what we can practically do is, so one thing is the organizers of such events definitely have to make more of an effort to understand what they're about. Even, say, having a 15, so I used to be president of the Bristol University Hindu Society long ago, and when I joined the Diwali ball, we used to call them Diwali balls, I mean, we didn't, all the NHSF stuff wasn't so active back then, actually. And yeah, it was just a social thing. We were just going to have a party, basically. It wasn't a spiritual thing at all. And when I came, I was really dismayed by it because I wanted to make it a bit more philosophical, a bit more spiritual. So, you know, even to have like a 15-minute slot before you have your Diwali ball, just someone giving a little talk just to explain this is what Diwali is about, this is the story, this is the deeper meaning behind the story, because it's not just a story. So with a lot of Hindu philosophy and scripture and stories, so stories like the Ramayana, for example, there's an outer meaning, what we call the outer meaning, which is just the actual story of Ram and Sita and Ravana, and then there's a deeper meaning behind that. So both need to be appreciated. I think we generally focus on the katha, what we call the katha aspect. You know, you get kathakaras, and that's also very beautiful and important, and that illustrates a lot of things, but there is a deeper philosophical meaning to it as well. And I think both of those should be touched on, say 10 minutes before you have your Diwali event or whatever. So that's a practical means, you know, allocating a bit of time in festivals and sessions for that. And another thing is, I want to say, I know this is a bit of a thing, just the leaders, the organizers have to do that, but we, as just people going, should make an effort, right? Just make an effort to understand a bit more. Ask the question. I'm wary of us, I think there's a danger of us blaming, oh, it's consumerism's fault, I'm not going to do anything. Oh, the organizers have to do it, I'm not going to do anything. And it's always this thing of shifting responsibility. It takes a big heart and a lot of maturity to take responsibility. So I'm keen in this discussion that we also, all of us here, whether you're organizers or just people who go, you know, you can all ask the question and just Google it, as I say, if you have no other source, at least make an effort to find out. We're not saying you have to be a scholar and study everything. Just, you know, a little 10 minutes, just Google it about what is Diwali about and what is this festival about. I think that will really make a big difference. And the whole, to use my favorite word, the whole vibe of the event will change, I think.
So I think practical ways to bring out the essence, the true meaning about utsavs. So a few easy tips and tricks. So there's in the audience, there's I think maybe 2 ex-Hindu Society, Manchester Hindu Society presidents, 1 current vice president. So they can make themselves known later and you can talk to them about it. But they have a highly successful Diwali ball every year. So that Diwali ball is called Ayodhya. Yeah? Yeah. So changing the name, right, from Diwali ball to Ayodhya. Okay? Instantly, there's like, okay, you know, what is Ayodhya? You know, it's a bit more of a meaningful name. And other things that I believe they have done is things like when you have the ballroom and you have different like round tables where everyone's seated, all the tables are given different names and significant names, not just table A, table B, red, black, Ram, Sita, Jatayu, Lakshman, etc. Yeah? And then I also believe that on the table in the middle and where the big decoration piece is, where it says the name, it also has an explanation. Who was Ram? Who was Sita? You know, who was Jatayu? And like a little paragraph. So these we might think are like very small things, but actually it makes a difference, right? Because people sit down at their tables during Ayodhya, the Diwali ball, they look at the table piece in the middle, they read, oh, okay, I didn't know this. I didn't know that Jatayu was so significant, or whatever it might be. So I wanted to point that out because I think, especially we're here in Manchester University, so we should know the successes of their Hindu Society committees in the years past and the years present. But things like that, which we're really within NHSF driving, because as Aditya ji said, like you attended your Diwali ball, they're a big thing. They're like massive across the UK because they get in a lot of money. They're very popular. So that means that we have more of a responsibility to make them more meaningful. And universities like Manchester, their Hindu society, one of the best in the country, are like striving forward and doing little things like that that actually bring out the essence of the Utsav even more. Shout out to all the Manchester Uni if you haven't already asked.
Okay, Aditya, if we're saying that Dharma is now becoming more commercialized, is our identity being compromised and corroded?
I suppose it's all about definitions of dharma and identity here, isn't it? So to me, dharma really exists in the hearts of people. The way I see it is, I think it's not that commercialism is eroding our Hindu dharma. I think it's the other way round, in that our lack of knowledge of Hindu dharma is inevitably leading to other stuff like commercialism, which is sort of what has been said already in other terms. But it's rooted in lack of understanding, really. And as I mentioned before, I think if your heart is pure, your intention is pure, everything will just work. It will flow. So even all the commercial aspects of organizing an event, if the organizers and the people involved are doing it genuinely, it will just work, I think. I don't think it's that we should vilify commercialism. I'm not into that. I don't think commercialism per se is anything bad. It can be a great thing. So.
I think commercialism is probably one of the many reasons why our identities might be being corroded, eroded, whatever you want to call it. But there's so many avenues out of that as well, because the very commercialism that makes a Diwali ball a big success is also the same commercialism that brings 400 students to that ball and gives them potentially a deeper understanding of actually the meaning behind Diwali, right? I honestly, I don't think our identities are being eroded at all. Like I am a student. I work with students, and the organization and the Hindu student society, as in the Hindu student Samaj, wouldn't be as dynamic and as thriving as it was if our identity was being corroded. So I don't think it is.
I agree with Vipasha, actually. I think marketing, commercialism is often done to establish a brand. Yeah, and yes, by doing that, the next generation perhaps is coming together. So I don't think the Hindu identity is being compromised, but my fear is the value system is compromised. They know that we are Hindus, in the name, that is what the brand or the identity, but that's just the name. What does it really stand for? That is what is being compromised. So that is my take on it, that by all means, yes, do the commercializing, marketing, bring people together. If you think that by renaming the event, by doing something else, more people will come, so be it. Yeah, we in Hinduism, please remember this, we are very dynamic. We are not static. Yeah, over a period of time, we keep on changing, and that is what we should do. Because we do recognize that it is a constant flow of life, constant flow of ideas, constant flow of new things. But whilst we are doing that, we should not compromise or forget our value systems.
Thank you. Vipisha, do you think in, say, the next 20 years, our festivals or Diwalis will just end up like Christmas, with our cultural values and traditions, will they now simply become like other religions?
No, I don't think so. I think Christmas is a very special case of what has happened to Christmas. But I think our civilization, our dharma has existed and thrived. The fact that we're sat here in 2019 still talking about this it shows that, right? But for so long, and so I don't think in 20 years, we're all gonna be completely like mindless and unappreciative and whitewashed, so to speak. But I think we need to be mindful of how we make sure that doesn't happen, which is basically everything we've spoken about. So I don't want to like just repeat what has been said. So I think it's not a bleak picture at all, because you have the younger generation increasingly active within their universities, within even their local like Samaj communities. In some, especially the youth is very active. So I think, and if we think that the youth is what will essentially take it forward, the next 20 years, it's the youth that are going to be disseminating information to their kids, then I think we're in a good place right now, but we need to carry on with the hard work that has been done by organizations like Vichar Manthan, like NHSF, all the very different organizations that are there to give the youth a voice, an identity, but just like Naval Kantji said, not a empty identity of just Hindu in name, but actually, what does that mean? What does that Hindu actually stand for? And I think we're doing that. I think it's a slow process as well. It's not, you can't just change a generation, 2 generations within the space of a few years. But I am hopeful that 20 years from now, we won't be in the gutter.
But do you not think it'll become as commercial as Christmas? Because each year, Diwali, I mean, we've not even got through Navratri yet, and you've already seen the adverts for Diwali, the food, the party, the fireworks. So we are going down that route where it's going to be more commercial.
Yes, it is becoming a greater thing in terms of people buying each other expensive gifts and spending a lot of money on it, etc. But if we ensure that the message behind it is just as important, and that starts from celebrating at home. So one thing that my mum told me actually was that it's all well and good saying that we should at university you should go and do your artis and whatever, but if at home you're not celebrating, if at home you're not celebrating utsavs like Diwali, like even that could be the smallest thing, just doing a puja, just doing an arti, right? It all starts at home. And if we endeavor to ensure that our homes are places where children and adults alike can thrive spiritually, can ask questions, and can hopefully get the answers that will take them that step further to achieving the top level of what Adityaji was talking about. If we can make sure that our homes are those sacred environments, then in 20 years' time, however much commercialized it might be, we'll still be in an all right position.
Yes.
Can I do a quick audience poll, please? Because you've mentioned Diwali a few times. We all know Diwali is celebrated, homecoming of Ram to Ayodhya. Yep, you all know that. What's the puja done on Diwali day? Lakshmi puja, not Ram puja. Why? See, I had, how many of you, this is the audience poll, how many of you actually knew this answer? It's homecoming of Ram, but you're doing Lakshmi puja. Yeah? You have to understand. It's very, very simple thing, but you really have to understand that if Ram is Vishnu, then his consort, Lakshmi. Lakshmi comes home. And that is why they do all the puja, they put Lakshmi feet on the, and all this kind of thing. This is an important aspect of Diwali, that and our Hindu philosophy, that there is equality. There is a lot of emphasis, time and again, even through these subtle traditions of festival celebration, that women are actually considered to be higher. They are at a higher level. Shakti is, worshipped as goddess. No other tradition does it. It's only in Hinduism. That's the value system we must maintain. That is what should be conveyed through celebration of Diwali.
Aditya, would you like to make some comments?
Not really much to add, to be honest. I think it's been very well covered. Just one thing came to mind just now. This is kind of pitching it at quite a high level, I suppose. But it's good to have knowledge about what all of these festivals are about. But as I say, ultimately, for me, and this is over like 16, 17 years of reading Hindu philosophy and struggling through with it with various teachers, it all comes down to your heart, really. So you can have all the scriptural knowledge and know everything about every festival, but if you're not a kind, compassionate person, if you're an angry, selfish, arrogant person, which is just character traits, then I think that the true message, for me, that is spirituality, really. So, it's spoken of in the Gita. So, for example, there's one shloka in the Bhagavad Gita. It says, Adveshta sarvabhutana maitra karuna evacha. So, Adveshta sarvabhutana, may you have no hatred towards any being. Yeah? This is Krishna's words. Maitra karuna, maitri and karuna, may you have compassion and empathy for others. Nirmamo nirahankaraha, so may you not have any ahankara, any arrogance, any ego. Samadukka sukha hakshami, may you have a calm mind. So to me, that is ultimately what it's about. I know it's good, of course, to know the katha. That's what I was saying. You have the outer meaning of a festival and a story, but the inner meaning is this, for me anyway. Right? It's in your heart, because one can have all of that scriptural knowledge and still be very, very harsh and very cold-hearted and very selfish, and then I just feel, what's the point? So.
Thank you, Aditya. Let's now open it up to the audience.
My question is directed towards Aditya Ji and Ashabed, picking up something that Aditya Ji mentioned earlier. So, do we have to today, especially in the West, accept the fun element as an entry point to our utsavs for many people within our community? And following on from that, are there ways that we've actually used these sort of fun activities to bring out the values behind those utsavs?
Interesting. Do we have to? I mean, yes. I think the fun element can be an entry point, which is sort of the point I was making before. At least if in this room no one goes to any festivals, then again, this is a bit of marketing in a way, saying, oh, it's really fun, please come along. And great, at least we've engaged you in something, right? At least you're coming, and at least that gives you a platform upon which you can build something more. So to me, that is the sort of practical reality of what it is. What was the second part?
So many things. So if fun is the entry point to an utsav, let's take the utsav of Navaratri, so much fun. Yeah, if that's the entry point, then you have so much time and space within those 5 hours to really give students or non-students alike a memorable, fulfilling, significant experience, right? So one thing that we at NHSF have done over the past few years, 2 years, we've thought a lot more about the experience and the meaning behind why we're doing it. So it needs to be meaningful, everything that we do. So from small things like as people enter through the door, there's 2 people on either side of the door putting tilak on their heads, on their foreheads, saying namaste, giving them, putting tilak on their foreheads. When we have, midway through the event, when there's a break, there's speeches that happen. So maybe the national president or vice president, they'll do a speech. And embedded in that speech is the different values that we learn from this utsav. So last year there were, we made a point of making it very much about Shakti. So, why do we celebrate this utsav? The centrality of Shakti in this utsav. Then at the end of the utsav, we gave everyone little cards that had a really cool picture of Durga at the front. Then at the back it had a really lovely quote. So yes, the entry point is coming to a festival where everyone's dressed up in really beautiful outfits, so colourful, so vibrant, so lively, dancing to live music, that's the entry point. But actually, by the time you leave, you have gained so much more than that.
You mentioned adveshta, which means no animosity towards anyone. But sadly, in the life that we lead, at work, in our neighborhood, and others, we will end up with the disagreements. We will actually end up not talking. Yeah? Oh no, avoiding them, and all these kind of things. So it happened when I was a child. Holi came, and our teacher, I went to a DAV school, and he said, yeah, throw color, all this, that's all great. But promise me one thing. And we said, what is it? He said, during the year, you must have fallen out with one of your friends. You must have had a bit of a, argument with your neighbors. Today, go and give them a hug. Adveshta, holy hugs.
Thank you. Yes, you.
Just 2 comments and then question. You see, we have been using the word money quite a lot for Lakshmi. I think we should use the word prosperity, because prosperity is what is expected. Secondly, I think all our festivals are there to create an auspicious environment. Now, leading to that, you see the present day way which we are celebrating all our festivals. Don't you think that it is also leading to quite a lot of vulgar behavior within that atmosphere? So you see, in India, I think you see Navratri has become like that. The Holi also is sort of drifting to that sort of area. So how can we balance that so that the auspiciousness of the celebration is not turned into vulgarity? So it's a question for all of you.
Professor Prinjit, how can we balance the vulgar behavior?
Again, a couple of things. One is education, and the arrangements that are made by the organizers, and the kind or the type of activities. For example, in Garbas, that some I used to go and attend, and I suddenly realized that most of the music was based on Bollywood songs. And in fact, even, in Punjab, there's a big tradition of Jagrata, where at night they will sing and sing praises. And most of those tunes were actually based on movie songs which were more to do with love-making than with worshipping. So even if the words were different, the tune is the same. So, you got to really take care of, what tools and the processes that you are using to. The whole idea should be to check and rebalance. Yes, a lot of things we do in our everyday life, and by all means carry on. But if you set aside one day in a year or few hours in a year, then during that day or that hour, you rebalance. You say, no, today we will not do this. Today, our focus will be like Shivratri. You go and sit. You are meant to meditate, to say, what is it that I have done whole of my year? My goods and my bads, and in more of an introspection. It's that. So festivals should be there to correct, to rebalance, not to promote same thing which is going on.
Thank you.
Yeah, as was said, I think, education, understanding more about the festivals. Again, I come back to my point. I'm slightly wary of us trying to judge others as vulgar. I don't know what you're referring to be honest. I'm not really sure. I haven't been to lots and lots of festivals. We lived in quite a remote area, so we had all the kind of traditional South Indian festivals that I was involved in for years, and they were all fine. They're very good. But I think ultimately, it comes down to, rather than what should other people do, I just think, what should I do? What do I need to do? We have to lead by example. So everyone in here should look at themselves. That's what I'm keen to push the message, really. But yeah, nothing to add. Everything, I completely agree with what was just said as well.
Vipasha, anything to add? No. Thank you. Thank you. As always, time has caught up with us. I'm sorry for those that didn't get to ask a question. I personally have a bit more clarity, and our intention here today was to critically explore where the line actually is. When does something dharmic become commercial? I hope today you go away asking yourselves that same question. Where do you sit on this position? Where is your line? When does something dharmic become commercial? I hope you will continue to carry on the manthan at home with your friends and family. Before we end, can I please ask our panel briefly to summarize their thoughts? And I'll put the central question to you as well. Where is your line? When does something dharmic become commercial?
Something dharmic becomes commercial when, as we've said, the emphasis on money, materialistic goods, whatever, trumps the essence of the utsav. And I think that we all in this room, we all as a community of British Hindus have a responsibility to educate ourselves, those around us, and that's on very many different platforms. So at home, at school. At school, the religious education is awful, like truly awful. We can have a whole nother VM about that. But within the home, within school, within university, and then within later life as well. The learning should never stop, and only then will we become proud and appreciative and respectful of the essence of behind why we do things, and then we'll feel a real kind of pull to protect these utsavs whilst making them as fun as possible.
Yeah, I mean, I don't want to repeat again. I think the point has been made very well. I think when our intention is pure, everything will just flow from that. So that's all I'll say.
Very quickly, Dharma will get commercialized if you put Dharma in the hands of people who want to exploit it. Simple. So my take-home message is, please teach, don't preach, and focus on spirituality.
Thank you very much to our panel. It certainly has been a thought-provoking manthan. And thank you to you, the audience. Please join me in giving a round of applause to Professor Prinja, Aditya Gurtu, and Vipasha Surangi.
I hope you found today's VM interesting and have had a chance to reflect on how and why we celebrate Hindu festivals in Britain. VM is all about the exploration of ideas rather than giving us solutions. We hope that we've given you enough information and insight. Thank you once again. Good evening, everyone, and have a safe journey home.